So making your way, please, into a comfortable seated position. Sitting in a way that your spine is long. You can feel the air coming in through the heart. And taking maybe your first deep breaths of the day. And noticing what's here for you in this moment. Imagining a big ball of white light around your heart that's growing stronger as you inhale in. And pulling the energies up through the heart, through the throat, through the third eye, and all the way out to the crown of the head, up high above you into the heavens. And then just exhaling, letting that go. Again, taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. This time, imagine the air traveling even higher beyond our sun and into the central sun. The central sun is the star Sirius, goes beyond our universe. And then allowing the air to just, or the breath, to just flow naturally in and out. Gently bringing your palms together at your heart and turning your gaze down toward your fingertips. Mindfully creating your intention for our time together. What it is that you need to feel into the wholeness of who you are. Maybe it's a shift in mindset. Maybe it's a physical shift. Really feeling the energies moving through you. And on your next exhale, just drop your hands down by your sides, please. I'm going to start with some neck movement. You can sit with the legs crossed. If it's more comfortable, you can straighten the legs out in front of you. Starting with the arms strong, fingertips bright. Maybe the fingertips touch down to the mat, maybe they lift up a little bit. And on your next inhale, lift the arms up over your head, gaze up as well. Exhale, pull the hands into the heart. Same thing again, the arms out to the side, big sweep like you're pushing through something that's got some weight on it. And exhale, hands come into your heart. Now this next time you'll reach the arms up over your head, keep them there. Drop your left hand down, lean over to the left, maybe even bending into the left elbow as the right arm reaches up and over. Slowly opening through the right side of the rib, grounding through the right hip. Inhale, reaching both arms back up. And exhale, the right hand comes down, leaning to the right, pushing the left hip down to stretch through the left side of the body. Inhale, both arms reach up. And drop the hands in front of you, probably up on your fingertips. You might be able to crawl the hands a little forward and drop your chin down, stretching into the top part of the spine. Now begin to walk your hands back and come back to seated. If If you need, you can switch and place the other knee and the other ankle in front. Now this time, again, starting with the hands straight, palms facing forward, fingertips bright. You'll lift the right arm up and over your head. Drop the right hand to the outside of the left ear. Turn the left palm to face down, or just let the hand relax if it feels too intense. You can even drop the left palm down to the mat as you pull the right ear over toward the right shoulder. Drop the chin down towards your chest to really get into the left side of the neck. Lifting it up again, nice and slowly. And now reaching the right arm back up, drop it down by your side. Take a moment and roll the shoulders up and back a couple of times. Again, palms turn to face up, the arms reach up over your head. This time the left hand drops down as the right hand comes up. Oh, we just did that side. Let me do the other side. Sorry, lifting the left arm up, right hand stays down, and the left hand drops onto the right ear as you pull the left ear over towards the left shoulder. Either just letting the right hand drop down, maybe even resting it on your knee if it feels like it's a big stretch to get it down to the mat. And drop the chin to the chest. Gently lifting it up. And one more time, dropping the chin down. See if you can get into those muscles in the right side of the neck. Now lifting your head up, sweep the left arm back down. Reach the arms up over your head. Interlace the fingers, turn the palms to face up towards the ceiling, and pull the shoulders down. Now bring the hands in front of you, pushing the palms away from you, again ratcheting the shoulders back. And finally, with the hands interlaced, take them onto the back of the head, elbows out to the side for a moment, and now pull the elbows in by the sides of your face as you drop your chin down. Gently turning the head from side to side to loosen the back of the neck. And release the hands, drop them onto the tops of the knees and roll the shoulders back a couple times. Any other movement that you might need? Actually, let's move into sort of a cat-cow variation. You can either keep the knees crossed, or if you'd like, you can bring the soles of the feet down and then just grab below the shins. You round the spine back as you exhale, and as you inhale, push the heart forward. So it either looks like this or with the legs crossed. So you're just undulating the spine back and forth, getting to the spot behind the heart. Breathing in as you come forward and exhaling as you round back, really leaning back. Chin comes to the chest. Inhale again. And exhale, round back. Now neutralizing the spine, take your hands to one side and bring yourself onto your knees. Please, kneeling on the knees. You can have the knees on top of the blanket if you'd like. Whew, I'm already working up some heat. Tuck your toes under behind you. Reach back and make sure that the pinky toes are facing forward as well. And as much as you can, as well as you can, sitting your hips back towards the heels. Going to be our first timed pose. You can come up to kneeling for a moment while I get this set up. Okay, now sitting the hips back on the heels. Remembering you can also place the blanket between the hips and the heels if this becomes too intense. Sweep the right elbow underneath the left, either bringing the palms together or bring the palms onto your shoulders, and lift the elbows up. Turn your head from side to side. Breathe, do your best to keep the shoulders over the hips rather than leaning forward. Tendency is we want to lean forward. lifting the hands, pulling the hands away from the face and lifting the elbows a little higher. Just got a few more seconds here. This will wake you up. And dropping the hands down in front of you, untuck the toes, gently tapping the tops of the feet on the mat. Now as a counter stretch, you'll sit back on the heels with the toes untucked for just a moment. You can keep the knees lifted on the blanket, just opening up the ankles. If you have flexibility in your ankles, you can try taking the hands behind you and lifting the knees up off of the mat, really feeling the stretch in the front of the ankles. And drop the knees back down. Tuck the toes under again. Round 2 of the toe stretch. So the heels go back towards the hips, this time sweeping the left elbow underneath the right. Either the palms come together or hands come onto your shoulders. Lifting the elbows up and pulling the hands away from your face. And feeling the beautiful stretch between the shoulder blades, back of the heart. And softening the jaw as much as you can. Just about 15 seconds left here. And dropping the hands down in front of you, untuck the toes. Either tapping the feet again or maybe rolling the ankles around. You could straighten one leg at a time to push through the heel to roll out and stretch the ankles and the bottom of the feet. Now drop the tops of the feet down, big toes touch and knees wide. Lift the hips back towards the heels in a child's pose. Either dropping the elbows down to the mat or keeping them lifted as you pull the heels and the hands towards your shoulders so that the shoulders drop down a little bit from the ears. Forehead is down to the mat, tapping into your center of insight, of intuition and wisdom in the third eye center. Allowing the breath to expand into the back of the body. And just a few more breaths here. How much can you soften around the edges? Melting into the mat. And gently walking the hands back and lift your chest up. The next pose will be frog pose. 2 options for this pose, frog or toad. So keeping it in the same little, what is that, reptilian family. So option 1, which will be a little less intense, is you come to seated and turn the toes out with the legs wide apart. You'll drop the elbows to the inside of the knees, gently pushing against the inside of the knees and then bringing your fingertips, probably the index and the middle fingers together, and then drop them onto the mat. So essentially you're leaning forward enough that the elbows are pushing against the inner thighs to encourage an opening. That's toad pose. Frog pose, you'll turn the edges of your mat in towards the center. And I even like to have a blanket on top, even with the mat turned over, because it does get a little challenging on the knees. So if you have a blanket available to you, spread it out so that when you drop down, your knees are on the blanket and the mat, and walk to the very top of your mat. Take your knees wide and turn the toes out. I'm going to turn around for a moment so you can see this. So there are two options here. Either the toes are turned out, I hope you can see my toes, or you can bring the big toes together. So it's similar to what we just did in a child's pose, but you're really pushing the hips back. So picking whichever version of this pose is sustainable for you, and we will settle in for a couple of minutes. So either dropping onto your elbows, if your knees are facing down, if you're seated, of course your elbows are pushing into the inner thighs. And this is an intense pose. So if you need, do your best to stay in as long as you can. If you need to come out, you'll bring the hips forward if you're facing down, and you'll just simply release the hands from the inner thighs if you're seated with the hands, the elbows pushing on the inner thighs. Perhaps coming out for a moment and then gently coming back in. And the beauty of these intense poses is the sense of presence, because it's very hard to drift away if there are deep sensations going on in the body. So get curious. Dive in a little deeper to what it is that you're feeling and see how you can shift it. Sometimes imagining through your breath that your breath is just sweeping into the spots where you're feeling this the most and pulling out any discomfort and creating more ease, more openness. You're doing great. You got about 45 seconds left. So can you relax the jaw? Can you bring a little lightness, knowing that you'll get through this? That relief is in sight, and that you are doing your body so much good by bravely tackling the discomfort. Deep breath. And slowly breaking the pose by bringing the knees forward or bringing the legs together if you're on your back. So if you did roll the mat up, take a moment with as little movement as possible to unroll the mat. If you're seated, you can windshield wiper the legs from side to side, or just really sit in stillness, noticing the shifts that occurred from that deep pose. And the next pose will be a squat pose. So from wherever you are, bring yourself onto your feet, turn the toes out. Feet are a little wider than your hips. You can have the heels lifted up onto the edge of a blanket as you lower the hips down. Hands will either be in front of you, touching down, chin coming to the chest, or palms come together at your heart. If this is a lot for you, again, you can drop the hands down and straighten the legs for a moment and then come back in. Or drop the hips down and come back into the toad pose like we had just completed. This is really a great pose for the sacral area, opening up the back, the low back. In many cultures, this position is very common, sitting on the ground or kneeling down on the ground to cook, to eat, all kinds of activities. And from what I understand, those who are used to doing this pose in their body do not have the low back issues like we tend to have in the Western world. So something to be said for that. You can try dropping the fingertips down to the mat if you had the palms together. About 25 more seconds. Walking the hands back to flatten the palms, you may feel a little dizzy from having the hips down. So taking your time, straighten the legs, turn the toes forward, and slowly, mindfully, keeping the eyes open, walking the hands up the legs, avoiding the knees. And when you get all the way to standing, roll the shoulders back and turn the palms out, bringing the feet just about hip distance apart, standing in mountain pose. And feeling the shifts in the energy, keep your gaze forward, eyes open, breath is deep. And really turn the palms to face away from you, feeling the shoulders opening and the heart lifting. Pinky fingers are facing forward, thumbs are facing behind you. And from here, inhale, sweep the arms up over your head, as we did earlier when we were seated. Now this time you'll drop the right hand down the side of your leg, keeping the left arm lifted, and then allow the fingertips to crawl down this right side of the leg as you lean over to the right, pushing the hips to the left. The important thing here is that there's a tendency for the left shoulder to roll forward. So really pull the left shoulder back. It helps if you gaze up towards your left elbow to keep the shoulders stacked one on top of another. Now slowly lifting yourself back up, both arms up over your head. Exhale, the left hand comes down the side of the leg, crawling the fingertips down, maybe towards your knee. And again, rolling the right shoulder back, pulling the left hip forward so everything's lined up. Gazing up towards the right elbow. Carefully pushing the hips back to the left as the left arm reaches up. Bend both elbows, cactusing the arms. Lift this camera up a little bit so you can see. And now sweep the hands behind you, interlace the fingers on the low back. Straighten the arms, pulling the palms down towards the back of the knees and pushing the heart forward. Being careful not to jut the low ribs out. So pulling the tailbone forward will help with that. Maybe your hands are right close to the back of the hips, or maybe they can really lift a little higher. Gaze is in front of you. And exhale, just release the grip of the hands, floating the fingertips back and forth like you're floating them through water. You may be shaking the hands out like you're getting water off of your hands. Now the next longer held pose will be a standing forward fold. Option to place the heels on the edge of your blanket, maybe turning the toes out a little bit. Feet are a little wider than your hips. You can also just keep the heels flat down on the mat. Soften your knees. You do not need to keep the legs really straight as we do this. Chin comes to the chest and begin to round the spine forward, folding forward to the level that's available to you, and then grab opposite elbows. You can either let the arms dangle down or rest them just above the knees, bending the knees a little deeper. You can alternate between those two as well. Feeling the space that you're creating between the vertebrae, loosening the neck, letting it hang like it's a piece of fruit. Expand the breath into the back of the lungs. Grounding into the big toe ball mound of the feet, maybe actually exaggerating and pulling down on the big toe ball mound and noticing how that affects where you feel the pose in your body, moving it more to the outer hips. We got a few more seconds here. Soften the knees a little more. Drop the hands down to the mat. Rounding the spine, so keep the chin forward, the shoulders, the hands forward, and the shoulders and the head are the last thing that round up. So rounding, bringing yourself up to standing, roll your shoulders back, lift the head, and keep the gaze in front of you with the palms turning to face away. You may want to bring the feet a little closer together to feel a little more balance here. Recalling the intention that you set and feeling how that is showing up in your body. If you're not already there, walk your way to the top of your mat. We are going to be coming onto one knee, so if you have a blanket, you may want to bring it towards the middle of the mat. Palms turn to face away from you. Inhale to sweep the arms up over your head. Bend the elbows out to the side and push the heart forward. You can also do this with the hands on the low back, gently pushing the hips forward as you pull the elbows towards each other. Inhale, reach the arms back up over your head. Exhale, arms out to the side, soften the knees, and fold all the way forward. Gently step your left foot back and drop your knee down. Knee can land on top of your blanket. Untuck the toes. I'm actually going to turn around this way. Scoot the right foot as far forward as you can so that the ankle is either in front of or just underneath the knee. Now drop your hands to the inside of the right foot. You can have your hands on a blanket, on a pillow or a block. Just be here for a moment, pushing the down into the right foot, feeling a beautiful opening in the left hip flexor. The right knee should be pointed forward at this point. Slowly allowing the opening. And this sequence is called low and slow. I think because so many are on the ground or forward fold. And of course, we're moving very slowly. Sometimes that can be a little more challenging. And yet I feel the insights that can show up when we slow down can be a lot more profound as we're taking the time to feel the nuances. Now, gently pulling the weight back over the left knee for a moment. Lift your hands just above the knee, your right hand just above the knee, and then circle the knee out to the right. If this bothers you to be on the left knee like this, then you can skip this one. Maybe sitting back in a child's pose for a moment. And now leaning forward again, bringing the weight over the right heel. If you have a block, you can move it out to the left. This is called wandering dragon. So both hands will go over to the left, like you're reaching for something. The right toes are still facing forward. I think, turn around. No, I think I still need to be facing this way so you can see. And you're up on your fingertips, or maybe your hands are up on your block or your pillow. So you want to feel a stretch in the right outer hip as well as through the right side body. Just let the head hang forward. Actually, it's a lot into the inner or behind the hip as well. If it becomes too intense, bring the weight back over the left knee for a moment and see if you can gently pull yourself forward again. Try turning up the corners of your mouth a little bit, lightening your sense of what this pose is, lightening up in your perception as well about how long a couple of minutes really is. I can tell you that we are just about halfway there. And noticing what that does to your mind, knowing you're halfway. Do you lament that it's almost over, or are you clinging on, waiting for it to end? I think I might know the answer to that one. You really have the capacity to persevere, and it may feel like you're breaking, but you are doing your body good and nothing is going to happen. Your body has the wisdom to take you out of the pose if you're doing anything to harm yourself. You're taking it right to your edge of comfort. Now walking the hands back. Ooh. Lifting up to kneeling. We've got one more exercise to do with the right leg forward. So maybe spinning the hips around a little bit or the knee around to loosen the hip. And the next pose will be half splits pose. So you'll move heel toe the right foot a little bit further towards the center of your body so that when you look down, the ankle is underneath the knee. Either drop your hands on either side of the right leg. If you have a block, you can place the edges of your palms on the block and then lift the right toes up as the left knee is right underneath the left hip. If this is just too much for you, option 2 is to drop onto your back, grab behind the thigh, drop your head and shoulders down, or maybe even behind the shin, pulling the shin in towards your chest. And really, you may notice that the right hip is kind of turning out, up and out to the right. If you can pull it in, squeezing the inner thighs together, keeping the hips even with each other. One more minute to go.
Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Mamba Lalita Devi.
If your mind is beginning to wander, pulling it back into the breath, awareness to the breath, awareness of the air coming in through the nostrils. And now gently pull the heel back, drop the toes down. If you need to come off of your left knee, you can tuck the left toes under and lift the knee up, rock a little bit back and forth. I realize we do have one more on this side before we move to the other side. It will be a shorter one. So dropping the left knee down again. This time you'll pull the right heel in, allowing the ankle to be a little bit behind the knee. You can see that. This is called overstepping dragon. So if it's okay on your knee, you'll drop the hands in front of you. Lean forward. This will get into the calf muscle, the back of the calf muscle.
Durga Devi Shankari.
We're just going to be here for 1 minute. The timer's already going. You've got 40 seconds left. So protecting yourself, and please, if there are areas where you have injuries and I need to work around them, please do let me know, either through the chat or through email, so that I can be sure to give you alternatives.
Namastasye, namastasye, namastasye.
All right. Now bringing the right knee back to meet the left. I think it would feel really good to come into a down dog. So walking the hands a little forward, spread the fingers wide, tuck the toes under, and lift the hips up and back. Pushing the heart towards the back of your mat and pedaling out the feet.
Namastasye, 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 namo
And slowly begin to walk the feet forward to the top of the mat, coming back into a forward fold for just a moment. Place your hands on your hips. Pull the elbows towards each other and lift the very top of your head forward so the back flattens. Soften the knees and then push through the feet to bring yourself back to stand. Drop the hands by your sides. Mountain pose. Heart is lifting, gaze is forward. I'm feeling the shift in the energy by being back on your feet again for just a moment. Now inhale to reach the arms up over your head. Exhale, turn the palms away from you, sweep the hands behind you. Interlace the fingers. If you can remember to move the hands over, so move the fingers over one space so the opposite thumb is on top. It probably feels a little weird and awkward. We have a natural way that we cross our hands, and then we want to make sure that we're working the less natural way, straightening the arms, pulling the hands down towards the back of the knees. Now bend your knees nice and deeply and begin to fold forward, maybe reaching the hands towards the back of the head, lifting them up off of your back. Drop the hands on either side of the feet, up on your fingertips, and this time stepping back with the right foot. Drop the right knee down onto your blanket or onto the mat. We'll start with the ankle underneath the knee and hands either on a block or down on a pillow or blanket or something that elevates them if you need. So we just allow the left hip to really settle in to this pose. And pulling the weight into the left heel. Back toes are untucked. Gaze back and make sure the foot's not sickling in, that the toes are facing the back of the mat. And breathe. Low and slow. This soupy weather we've been having makes me slow down. Makes me feel a little sleepy. And yet allows as well more time for introspection. Nice job. Now pulling the weight over the right knee. Lift the left hand just above the left knee and then circle the knee away from you, counterclockwise direction. And then towards you, towards the center of the body in a clockwise direction. This is always an option if during this sequence on the second side you need to release the left hip, bringing yourself back up. You can even lift the right hand onto your hip as you circle the knees. And now pulling the weight back over the left foot, moving into wandering dragon. So walk the hands over to the right. You can drop the palms down onto the mat or bring your hands up onto your block if you have one. Left knee faces forward. Gaze maybe back towards the right knee, dropping the chin. And feeling deep into the left hip, a stretch through the left side of the body. Wandering dragon. We're building up resistance. Resistance to the discomfort. Resistance to the unknown. I guess we're not resisting the unknown, resisting to dipping into the unknown. I don't know, I may be saying that backwards, but I think you know what I mean. Becoming more resilient. Doing things you didn't think you were able to do. Holding for maybe another breath longer than you wanted to. Moving past the friction that occurs when your mind is telling you one thing and your body is telling you another. And there are many anecdotes about the need for friction to create something new. You're doing great. And that is it. So walking the hands back to center, either spinning the knee again before we move into the half splits pose, maybe pulling the weight over the right knee. You can also lift the right knee up by tucking the right toes under and rock a little bit back and forth. The right knee drops down again. If you're coming into a half split, you'll straighten the left leg, hands on either side of the left leg, or perhaps if you have a block, you place the block behind the knee and the hands are on either side of the knee. If you don't have a block, you can bring the hand above the knee. And remembering as well that you can be on your back. Keep the right sole of the foot down if you'd like, and grabbing just behind the shin to pull the knee into your chest. Keep the chin down. Feeling this in the back of the hamstring. You can soften the left knee as well if you're kneeling on the right. The left leg does not have to be fully straight. It can be bent a little bit. And pulling the left hip in. Landing where you know that you can sustain this for the next 75 seconds. What a beautiful way to start the day. Slowly feeling into the body, allowing the breath to expand. And rather than frantically going into the busyness of the day, the emails, the outer distractions, turning more inward. Got 10 more seconds left. And gently pulling the left heel back so that the toes drop down to the mat. We've got one more, the overstepping dragon. So before we move into that, taking any movements that you might need to loosen up the leg. If you were down on your back, making your way back with the right knee behind you. Just taking a moment to stretch in a way that helps release the tension in the hip. Now pulling the left heel back so that you'll see that the knee will come kind of on top of the left foot, left big toe. Overstepping dragon. leaning forward to get into the calf muscle and pulling the heel a little further back. Toes are nice and flat. Six more seconds, maybe 1 or 2 breaths. Nice job. Now pull the left knee back to the right. Walk the hands forward. Lift the hips up and back, downward dog. You can walk the feet in so that the heels flatten down a little bit more. This is really more about opening up the back of the legs. Don't worry so much about the form. It's letting it feel good in the body, pulling the heart back. And carefully walking the feet forward to the top of the mat, forward fold. Hands come onto your hips again. Pull the elbows towards each other and flatten the back as the knees soften. Feel the length and the energy that runs from the crown of the head all the way through the tailbone. Now gently lift yourself up, lift your torso up, pulling the hips forward and drop the hands by your sides. Big breath in, slow sigh out. Inhale to sweep the arms up and over your head. Gaze goes up as well. Exhale, turn the palms away from you. Swan dive forward with a flat back. Bend your knees so your palms flatten. And step both feet back to your downward dog, please. We're moving into pigeon pose or swan pose. I'm going to show the full version first and then an option. Well, actually, I'll get us set up and show you options as we do so. So you'll lift the right leg up high behind you. Come up onto the ball of the left foot and swing the right knee behind the right wrist, sweeping the right foot behind the left. And then drop the left knee down. Now, if you find that your hips are really elevated, your right hip is really elevated, option 1 is to drop the right hip down, pull the left knee in so that you have the legs at 90 degrees, or maybe even pulling the right heel in close to the left knee, turning forward over the torso, either up on your hands or down on your elbows. Option 2 is to straighten the left leg down, turning the toes down to face down. Right knee goes as far over to the right as possible, scooting the left knee back as far as possible, and then dropping down onto your elbows, or maybe all the way down onto your hands. That one is called screaming pigeon. If you're finding that both of these feel too much, option 3 is to come onto your back. Right ankle crosses outside of the left knee. Lift the left leg off the mat and swing the hands behind the left thigh. Head and shoulders drop down as you pull the left knee into your chest. Figure 4 pose. So you should be settled into one of the versions of this pose now. Allowing your thoughts to soften. targeting the outer right hip. Compassionately speaking to yourself, using the kindest voice, and releasing any propensity to compare to where you think you should be or where you might have been in the past. Accepting that where you are right now is absolutely perfect for you. And 3 more deep breaths, finding just a little deeper release. And if you're on your back, you can release the leg down, the right foot down to the mat. Take the feet wide and windshield wiper the legs. If you're in a version of the pigeon pose, bring yourself back to downward dog, please. And the left leg will rise high behind you, moving to the second side. So the left knee goes as far to the left of your mat before dropping down. Try to pull the left heel, the left ankle towards the back of the right wrist. Maybe getting the shin somewhat parallel. Dropping the hip down as low as you can. Remembering the variation that you can drop the hip all the way down and bend the back leg. Also, of course, the variation of figure 4 pose, crossing the left ankle outside of the right knee. And settle in. Relaxing the jaw especially. Maybe wiggling the jaw back and forth. One minute left. You may feel a little more relaxed on this side. Just simply knowing what to expect. Riding that wave of stillness. And gently coming out of the pose. Downward facing dog. Left foot steps back. Wiggling the hips from side to side like you're wagging your tail. And from here, we're going to move into Sphinx pose. So walk the feet back. And bring the weight slightly over the wrists before dropping down onto your elbows. Then drop the knees and the hips down. You want the elbows a little bit in front of the shoulders. Depending on how intense you feel this in your low back, you can continue to walk the hands a little further so more of the chest is touching down to the mat, or keep the elbows just underneath the shoulders. Palms are flat. Relax everything from the waist down. Toes turn out like a little mermaid's tail, maybe wiggling the hips back and forth to allow them to settle in. Chin drops down to the chest. With your chin drop down, now turn it over the right shoulder and lift the chin up and lower it again. You may notice that the neck is a lot looser now than it was at the beginning of class. I know mine feels better. And then dropping the chin back down and over the left shoulder, lifting and lowering. Making sure that all of the muscles in the back of the legs are relaxed as possible. The belly is relaxed and pushing into the mat. Experimenting with seal pose. Allow the fingertips to turn slightly out and walk the hands a little more forward. Try lifting the elbows off the mat. You may have to really focus on relaxing the glutes as you lift the elbows up, pulling the heart a little forward, gazing in front of you. If that feels okay on your back, you might be able to walk the hands back a little further, lifting the chest slightly higher. If it's really too much on the low back, drop the elbows back down. This is a great opportunity to take a lion's breath. So breathing in through the nose, stick your tongue out, and gaze at your third eye so your eyes cross, and make a big lion's roar. Now drop the elbows back down. Nice job. One hand on top of the other, and forehead rests on top of the hands. Take your right knee and bend it out to the side. So the inside of the knee and the inside of the ankle are touching down, probably onto the floor just off of your mat. Like when you sleep on your belly. And then just giving into gravity here. Releasing any tension in the inner groin area, especially of the right leg. Right leg straightens. Left knee bends to the side. Same thing. You may want to switch and place the opposite hand on top, resting your forehead on top of the hands. pulling up energy from the earth, reminding you of the connection that you have to all the systems of nature, all the wisdom of how nature works. There's a flow of growth, new beginnings, blossoming, and retracting back into the earth. Things that we just take for granted. Straightening the left leg down. Bring the palms underneath your shoulders. Lift up onto your knees. Walk the knees forward and swing the legs to one side. And come to seated with the legs out in front of you. Winding things down. Rolling the ankles around. And then drop all the way down onto your back, please. Arms wide. Push into your heels to scoot the hips to the left and drop both knees over to the right. You're welcome to place the right hand on top of the left thigh. That increases the twist a little bit. You're rolling back onto your back. Scoot the hips a little to the right. Knees will drop to the left. Again, maybe placing the left hand just on the outside of the right thigh, and gaze will turn to the right. Let this feel good wherever you are. And roll yourself back onto your back, scooting the hips so they're underneath the shoulders. And then pull the knees outside of the ribs. Just rock a little bit from side to side. And straighten the legs out, turning the toes out, palms facing up. Settle into Shavasana. Begin to wiggle the fingers and the toes as you lengthen your breath. Rolling onto your right side, please. Taking a breath there, being in gratitude for your courage, for your resilience, for your power and connection. And then bring yourself up to a seated position, please. Palms together at your heart and gazing down at your fingertips in reverence to the wisdom that's emanating from your third eye, running into the fingertips, into the thumb knuckles and through the heart, cultivating a beautiful mind-heart coherence. Lift the thumb knuckles up to the space between the third eyes as we honor the wisdom within. And on your next exhale, bring the hands back to your heart as we honor all the love within and all of the love in the world. The light in me sees, honors, and bows to the light in you. Namaste.